For the rest of week 3. And the latest on Jordan Love, he returned to practice Wednesday, just 12 days after spraining his MCL late in the Packers' week 1 loss to the Eagles. Love practiced on a limited basis the last 2 days, left the possibility open to returning this week against Tennessee. And here's Packers head coach Matt LaFluer earlier this afternoon on his status.
I think there's definitely a lot that's up to him. I mean, you don't want to put somebody in that position, but certainly he's doing everything in his power. He wants to be out there more than anybody. So, but, you know, we'll work through it. We'll give it up till game time, and we'll see where we're at.
So, Dan, Jordan Love still questionable. What would you need to see out of him to make you feel okay about putting him out there in this game?
Yeah, I highly doubt he plays in this football game, and he's got to get medically cleared first. So in the world that he gets medically cleared and hypothetically, 1, does he look like himself in practice? 2, can he operate the way that he wants to operate? Remember, he's not a statue within the pocket. He likes to move around and create space within the pocket. And then really 3rd is, can he protect himself? Can he make sure that if there is some type of pressure issue that he's not just sitting there as a statue or a sitting duck and in danger? All 3 of those things have to happen, plus being medically cleared before Matt LaFleur is even going to think about playing Jordan Love. Again, I think it's doubtful that he plays, but if he gets medically cleared and he sees that stuff, he's going to be out there.
Dio, I agree with you. Listen, sometimes it's not about him being okay to play. It's about who you're playing against and whether you want to rush it or not. And this is not a defensive front that I would be getting after to try to get back while you're unhealthy, especially with Jeffrey Simmons in the center of that pocket, Tavondre Sweat, the rookie, but Harold Landry as well. These guys can absolutely get after the passer. I think of it always from that context. If you want to put a hampered guy out there, you got to be willing to deal with the potential of not, I'm not talking about an injury being catastrophic, but just him and his immobility creating a lot of problems for you offensively. And I think for Jordan Love too. Like, you got to take a long game picture. This dude got paid in the offseason. Obviously, he dealing with an MCL. But more importantly, you're a good enough team in the NFC to get into the playoffs and actually have a chance. You don't want to extend this further where you're looking down the road and saying, maybe if we would have kept him out one game, we would have won 2 or 3 later on down the road.
Exactly. And that is the main point to really drive home, especially when you think about that the Packers are playing the Minnesota Vikings the following week, right? Like, that's what it is right there. You can probably beat the Titans with Malik Willis as your quarterback again, right? And even if you don't, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not ideal, right? It's definitely not ideal, but it's not the worst thing. There's no point in rushing Jordan Love, especially like if he's not truly 100%. You can be medically cleared, you can look pretty good, but if you're really not 100% there, then it's just a greater risk than to do that than if you waited another extra week where now you can get to 100%. It really does make a difference, because when you think about it like this, I'm going to try to make this like the simplest way possible. If there's always a risk of injury, so let's just get that out of the way. There's always a risk of injury no matter how healthy, no matter how perfect you are, right? You always have that risk. But if you are 85% healthy, there is a greater risk of you getting injured versus you being at 95 or 100%, right? And so then there's no real rate. Like, even though you can play and you can play at 85%, and at certain points throughout the season or throughout even a career as a whole, yes, there's plenty of players who are playing 85%, 90%, 95%, right? They always say no one's ever 100%, but there's different degrees of it. And there's different levels of how important something is, right? Patrick Mahomes hurt his ankle and continued to play, later in the season and even in the Super Bowl. Whereas if it was week 3, he probably wouldn't have played, especially because if you continue to do something, let's say you're at 85% and you continue to kind of overexert that injury, it's not like you're making it harder for you to now go from 85% to 95% to 100%. In fact, sometimes you're just going to ensure that you're staying at 85%, or that you're now even going to regress slightly. That's part of the problem. So that's why extra rest really does matter. It absolutely, undeniably, 1000% matters. So it's not a matter of saying, because someone said in the comments before on a video, but we were talking about Jordan Love and the Packers and playing. They're like, well, if he's ready to go and he can play, then play him. It's not that cut and dry. If it was like the playoffs, if it was the Super Bowl, yeah, you can absolutely make that argument. But the best example of this will always be um Kevin Durant and his Achilles. I think that will probably be the best example. I know it's a different sport, but it's like he was not 100%, and it is the calf and Achilles, so that we're realizing that that's a lot more important of a relationship. But quite frankly, that relationship lies for a lot of other injuries and a lot of other concerns. So when you got to look at the bigger picture, and this is what, Marcus Spears was saying, where it's just like, you don't want to rush out for this one game to win this one game, when if you just waited a week, you're now putting yourself in a better position to win the other 2-3 games. So you can win this game. There's the potential risk, because they're talking about the pass rush causing problems for Jordan Love and the Packers. So you don't put him out there. You can still win with Malik Willis, if not the worst case scenario. And now, hopefully, for another week's rest, you now get to have Jordan Love back versus the Vikings, 95 to 100%, a much more important game, obviously, a divisional game. You're getting to the point now where you got to really start to get these wins going. It just becomes more important. And then the last point that I'll drive home, which is kind of, what also Marcus Spears said, is, right, this is a team that has true championship aspirations. They believed if they were fully healthy that they could get and win a Super Bowl. And that's what I had been saying all offseason as well. So it's my personal belief as well. That is what you're taking in consideration. You don't have to be a desperate team right now or rush anything back. It's just more complicated than that. It's not all or nothing. And so you just got to be smart. You got to look at the bigger picture. And it's just like the idea of rushing out a player, even if they're medically cleared, is just, it always just makes me uneasy. It's not to say that if he's really healthy and looks really good, they're like, we're just going to play it safe. There's a difference between rushing someone out, playing it safe, or, just straight up making a bad decision altogether. It's a lot more subjective. And even when you get medically cleared, quite frankly, especially with the type of injury that he had, it is also very much like, okay, do you feel pain when I do this? Okay, what about when you do this? It's not like, okay, I can see on the x-ray that you still have a few micro tears that haven't fully healed. You're not recovered. You're not medically cleared. It's a lot more of like, we're having a discussion. How do you feel about this? There's surveys that you're answering. How does it feel when you do X? How does it feel when you do Y? How does it feel when you get Z? You might have already experienced that if you ever went to physical therapy, when you're trying to get approval from insurance, and if you're going to continue to get your visits paid for, the physical therapist will also ask you, like, do you have trouble tying your shoes? Do you have trouble taking care of bathing and doing other needs? It's a very similar approach, of definitely a lot more comprehensive, but it's just, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. And it's also figuring out when an athlete is like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm good. That's why we always talk about, sometimes you have to protect the athlete from themselves. So again, big picture. So yeah, I'm interested. Orlovsky seems pretty confident that he won't play. I don't know. I'm not close enough to the situation to have a feel of how likely it is that he plays or not, but I could definitely lean on the sides of him not playing personally. And this is more kind of like, coaching games from Matt LaFleur. But, hey, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball, so I really don't know. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? One, do you think it's likely that Jordan Love does indeed play? And two, do you think he should play? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.